Hello, this is Mr. DeVries again, taking a look now at the next section of Chapter 19, Section 2. The World Since 1945, an overview is our chapter, and we're going to look now at global economic trends. And as you know, we'll be doing some activities in class to emphasize this, the trends that are going on now, and to track what this might mean as we look forward throughout modern history. So let's take a look together at well, the first slide here, you can see Derek and Tommy, age, I don't know, 5 or 6, visiting in Randolph. So there you go. That's what we call the bonus picture of the day. So now one of the things that we used to talk about is first world, second world, third world countries, but now the book likes to differentiate between the global north and the global south. And the global north doesn't necessarily mean a direction geographically speaking, but more of an economic and a cultural difference, standard of living, things of this nature, a gulf between the so-called global north and the global south. Relatively rich nations and relatively poor nations that we'll see divided. The global north includes mostly industrialized countries such as Western Europe, North America, obviously, Japan, Australia. There are pockets of poverty, as you note from the PowerPoint, within there, even in America, but the standard of living is generally high. With high literacy, basic health services are available to pretty much everybody, and this oftentimes goes with a capitalist economy, free economy, which again is something we'll be talking about, economic systems. Whereas the global south refers to the developing world, which is a pretty good size of the population, and some of these members of the so-called global south have developed more, but some, usually due to ethnic or religious or political strife, have remained quite poor, disadvantaged, and have remained in the global south. But what we're looking at as a trend now is truly a global economy. Anybody today who's involved in business or travel can tell you that we certainly have a global economy. If you don't understand, look at the products that you now have. Where do the raw materials, where are they put together as well? The stock markets and how they are fluctuating based on the weather patterns or the crops in Australia could impact the New York Stock Exchange, so it's all intertwined. So there's a lot of One World Summits nowadays, global summits to discuss the truly global economy. And then we have this quote from the current mayor of London: "We're closer now than ever to having a one world, a single global consciousness to solve the world's problems." And of course, that's the world's goal of the globalization, is to solve its humanistic approach and writing God out of the equation of the globalism and solving humans' problems with only humans' ingenuity. So all the effects of the different markets, they certainly will cause a ripple across the world. What we call now the electronic herd, which can move trillions of dollars, a small group of maybe a dozen men who have at their disposal trillions of dollars to trade and to move into one currency or another, which can certainly cause a worldwide crash at any time. Some of the more notable crashes are the Black Monday from back in when I was in college, also the tech bubble in 2000, and most recently a strong recession that occurred here in Michigan and throughout the country and the world in 2008 and 2009. So the rich and poor, again, mostly corrupt governments, can also be bad years of crops. Things can have a factor. This is talked about in the book of Revelation, chapter 6, where we see that there is always going to be those who have the wine and the oil, but there's also going to be those who don't, and those who are poor and can just buy the basic means of existence. So what are some of the trouble spots? Of course, we mentioned already Africa, but the World Bank and the IMF now goes and tries to mitigate these issues, which has been accused of late as acting sort of as what we call economic imperialism. So the World Bank and the IMF will go to many developing countries and say, yes, you can join, or we can give you subsidies, but you have to follow these protocols. So many other countries will say, well, this amounts to economic imperialism, so this is something we'll be discussing and digging into deeper in class. Geography, population, and poverty. We'll be talking about world population trends and how we as Christians view that, the economic policies countries have to make it easier or harder for you to develop a capitalistic economy, and of course the last one there, political instability. You can see not every country has the same level of life expectancy. You get all the way down to 53 years here, 45 in Angola, whereas more developed countries have much higher life expectancy and less infant mortality. Because of this industrialization, especially during the 70s and 80s, we had environmental catastrophes that we're going to be studying, particularly in Michigan here, the Great Lakes area. The Great Lakes were pronounced dead in the 1980s and now have made a comeback, but it wasn't only in the Great Lakes area that we had the the environmental impact of rapid industrialization. And now you see the same things occurring in China, because what we were going through in the 1980s, China is now going through in their rapid industrialization with no thought for environmental impact. So some of the major things, an international company, chemical company, had a major leak in Bhopal, India in 1984, killing thousands of people. We probably can remember the year later the Chernobyl disaster, a little later the Exxon Valdez, destroying a lot of wildlife with the major oil spill. Then more recently in your memory would be the BP oil spill in the Gulf. Because of these types of disasters and the overall effect, many governments and private industries are focusing on alternative energy sources. So I think this will be another topic we'll be broaching in class. What else can we get to provide the energy needed for the developed countries? And what if China, for example, with its well over 1.5 billion people, all had cars like we do, or all had air conditioning units and basically live like we as Americans? What would happen? So we're going to think about that and excuse me, and also explore some of these alternative energy sources and why have they not gotten off the ground, even with substantial government subsidies such as sun, wind, geothermal, and so on. And also we will be looking and talking about how our life has changed through mass media, particularly in the generation we live with social media, Twitter, Facebook, text messaging, how that's changed our life into the information age, all the things available on the internet, and how our values have changed. So those are some of the topics we'll be looking at in your projects. Another major topic for Section 2 is the global war on terror. This has been ongoing, as you know, now with the violence in Iraq again, the killing of Osama bin Laden a few years ago, as we try to help rebuild in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as other parts of the world. And even as we're recording this video, Israel and Palestine the violence is escalating there in the summer of 2014. So these are some areas to keep an eye on and how we could best fight this war on terror. Thank you, and hopefully make sure you've read Section 2, and the next day we'll then go on to Section